Why are you so triggered by a flag?
I'll tell
It's
you
a
what
rainbow
problem.
flag. You mentioned Regent Street.
I'm not triggered by a rainbow flag. I'm triggered by the fact that everywhere I go for a calendar month, everything has to be a rainbow flag.
Well, I'm triggered that everywhere I go for the entire year, everything has to be straight. Why is straight
Where's
everywhere?
my straight flag?
Why am I constantly
Where
getting
is my straight flag?
Why are straight people holding hands in the
When
street?
have you ever seen a straight flag?
Why has Mickey Mouse got a
Tell
girlfriend?
me one straight flag
Why
hanging
are you
right now
pushing?
anywhere in the world.
Why are straight people
Where
pushing
is the straight flag?
identity
Where's the
onto
straight
me?
flag?
Everywhere.
Where's my straight flag?
It's everywhere.
It's never been a straight flag.
You're a straight flag.
Hi, I'm Jo Bailey, clinical psychologist, and today I'm tackling a controversial subject, a contemporary subject of gender hysteria. Now, if I ask ChatGPT what gender is, it says that gender refers to social, cultural, and psychological characteristics, that it's distinct from biological sex, that it's a multifaceted concept that includes all these other aspects, including stereotypes, dysphoria, and non-binary, and so on. But people like Piers Morgan, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, they'll argue quite passionately that gender is binary, that there is male and female, with the exception, I guess, of intersex or hermaphrodites, where you might have some sort of natural chromosomal deletion or biological abnormality. Now, this happens, even nature gets it wrong sometimes. So I guess you could argue that there is, a third category of intersex. But Sexual Diversity Org claim that there are over 100 different genders or terms to define gender. Now, if I were to ask you to come up with 100 different terms to define gender, could you do it? Could you even do 10? It does become ridiculous at one point, and I think we have to, especially professionals, we have to start calling this out because it's doing more harm than good. And then it goes even more extreme, where people are now identifying as all sorts of obscure identities. Piers Morgan has a joke and says he's going to identify as a cat, but it's not a stretch from what some people are doing. This guy went and spent, $15,000 on some sort of dog suit because he identifies as some sort of collie. I don't know. Have we gone stark, raving bonkers? I kind of think we have. And everyone is too afraid to say something. We're too afraid to call it out in fear of being labelled a bigot, a hater, or being cancelled, which is another absurd contemporary invention. But most rational, genuine, everyday people don't want to speak out because they simply don't want to offend. They don't want to hurt people's feelings, and they really don't care how or what you identify as. But the discourse and the absurdity of the situation has been thrust upon us. We kind of don't get a say, but it's also thrust upon our children, like the high school in New South Wales, where they changed the toilets to non-binary. Boys could go into the girls' toilets. Now you give 15 and 16-year-old boys permission to, on a daily basis, identify as a girl because they want to go into the girls' toilets. And we are creating all sorts of other types of problems, which I'm not even going to address in this video. But come on, let's be real, please. Biologically speaking, there are two genders. This is my opinion, and this is what science, I believe, tells us. When a baby is born, what do you have to do to figure out its gender? Now, I'm not talking about sexual orientation or what it grows up and chooses to identify as. I'm talking about the basic, look down there and see whether it's a boy or a girl. That's not hard. And as I said, there are chromosomal abnormalities, there are hormonal irregularities, there are genetic defects which come into play. But that is a different argument and a different category completely. That possible third category of intersex is not nature's way. It's a biological malfunction, so to speak. So keeping that aside for now, there are two genders. Non-binary doesn't mean that you don't have a gender. It means you don't want to play along with the genderized social roles and labels. I'm happy to accommodate that. I'm happy to respect that. And I believe we all should be respectful of people's identities, because we don't know what people have gone through. We don't know what brought them to that moment, but that is a different argument. My point here is if others choose to play along with their genderized social roles, well, in the same way, that's their decision, and no one should be forcing anything upon anyone else. I think the complication comes from assuming that biological gender is the same as the social construct of genderized roles, or that biological gender is the same as sexual affiliation, and it's not. But biological gender is pretty straightforward. And the process of confusing the issue is resulting in young adults and children being confused over who they are. They are experiencing increased amounts of depression, of anxiety, of gender dysphoria, of experimentation with their sexuality, which is quite a risky behavior in that age group. They are experiencing increased rates of suicidal ideation, of self-harm, and ultimately of S behavior. So no, it's not something I'm prepared to be silent on, and it's difficult in my profession because we are made to toe the line. But the line for me is respect and autonomy and truth and compassion. And like I said, people can do whatever they want to do, but we are thrusting this upon others. We are thrusting this upon children that don't know who they are yet. So no, it's not something I can really be silent on because I'm watching it impact our children each and every day. And it's something that adults are embracing and propagating. It's something professionals are embracing and propagating. And to me, well, I just can't get my head around that. I think we are doing more harm than good. This is not normal. It's normal to know what sex you are, what biological gender you are. You can make decisions about your sexual orientation and what you want to identify later. We shouldn't hate. We shouldn't judge. We shouldn't even assume we know what's going on in their minds. But we should be kind and we should be compassionate and patient where we can, and we should want to help them. I'm in a helping profession. So to me, I am not providing this video to be contributing to a social narrative, to create controversy or to provoke. I'm creating this video because I think we need to call this out. And there's things that we need to help children understand are normal. Sexual dimorphism is relatively comparable for children that have not reached puberty. So the physical strength and the body mass and all these things around kids, boys and girls, is fairly equal until puberty sets in. And then we see a difference. Boys start to gain muscle tone. Girls have a smaller frame. Boys seem to be a bit stronger. Girls a little weaker, physically speaking. So it makes sense that females, once they reach puberty, are going to be a bit more vulnerable. They are emotionally as well. So from an evolutionary perspective in psychology, it kind of makes sense that females are going to be a bit more vulnerable and be at a disadvantage. And we know that around this age, negative emotions increase. This is something that happens to developing young people. They have an increase in corrosive emotions like shame and guilt and anxiety and even physical pain. They're more susceptible to this. Now, we don't talk about this when they come in confused about gender. We're now normalizing the fact that it's appropriate and normal to be confused about who they are biologically. But this is a hormonal event. As hormones start to flood their bodies, these vulnerabilities emerge. Yet, gender clinics don't talk about this. Females are going to be more threat sensitive, which explains also why transculturally, across cultures, females are more susceptible to depression than males. So it's actually very normal, statistically and biologically speaking, for mature females, women, to be more negatively aware of their body and their negative emotional states. Puberty is also a time of developmental curiosity. Bodies are changing, attraction is emerging, relationships are shifting from a focus with our parents to a focus with our peers. Hormones are racing, and also at the same time there's a lot of pressure and environmental stresses that are increasing. So you have school, academic, educational stresses that are piled on. Financial needs start to emerge. Young people want to be independent financially. Put it all together, and what I can tell you without any doubt is that the period of puberty, or indeed just the adolescent years, is not the time for professionals to be endorsing these normal experiences of confusion, agitation, curiosity, and exploration as pathological. And under no circumstances should professionals be endorsing or facilitating hormone therapies or, God forbid, sex changes with children. It's absurd. The brain's prefrontal cortex, so this is the part of the brain responsible for identity, for impulse control, for consequential thinking, is still developing up until the 20s, sometimes the mid-20s. So how can young people decide when they're 14 what they really want, who they truly are when it comes to gender and identity? But worse, how can professionals assist that 14 or 15-year-old girl with a mastectomy or hormone treatment when we know this about the developing brain, when we know this about the negative emotional states that emerge at puberty? It's horrifying to me, and it's beyond clinical rationale. And to me, it's the complete opposite of compassion. Compassion to me would be helping those young people understand that this agitation, that this anxiety, that the gender dysphoria, the curiosity, the exploration, the identity searching is absolutely normal and often passes. That is compassion, not telling them that they have a mental illness. And gender dysphoria is in the DSM, it's considered a mental disorder, and we are suggesting that they are someone else, trapped in a foreign body, that they are dysfunctional, that they are broken in some way, they have a broken mind or a broken body, and we lead them to an operation room for a procedure that will almost always result in further pathological problems. That's not compassionate, and it's not, in my opinion, based in any rational or historical or contemporary or cultural literature base. It's just not. The problem with the DSM is that it's put together by a group of contributing psychiatrists and professionals that pathologize behavior. They're the gatekeepers of behavior. They say basically whether a behavior is normal or abnormal, whether it's accepted or whether it's pathological. You know, these are the same people that a few years ago listed homosexuality as a mental disorder. Should we be trusting them? I think we need to come back to common sense. We don't have to be professionals. You don't have to have a PhD, a master's degree. You don't have to be a medical doctor or psychiatrist. You just have to have common sense. And common sense prevailed for many years, but we've lost it now. And I'm sorry if this video has offended some people. It's not my intention. My intention is to help people. That's my job. That's what I do. But we're not helping with this discourse. We're not helping with this treatment. We're not helping by letting you think that there's more than two genders. If you're a young person going through this gender identity crisis, or if you're the parent of a young person who's going through this, then you're going to unfortunately be hearing a lot of different voices, a lot of different commentary, a lot of woke professionals taking you into the gender dysphoria clinics, which are populated by woke employees. I mean, they're not going to employ someone like me who doesn't subscribe to this ideology. So you are going to be hearing a particular narrative. That's where the problem starts, because you have to trust yourself. You have to trust your parental instinct. And if this doesn't seem right to you, if it makes no heartfelt sense, it makes no rational sense, then it probably makes no sense. And you're probably right. But we do have to be compassionate, and we do have to care, and we have to help these people through this. Compassion is an action word with no boundaries. Compassion is to look beyond your own pain to the pain of others. And I'm trying to embrace that these young people are probably in some sort of pain. So we don't want to negate that. We need to embrace them and help them. Compassion is not a virtue. It's a commitment. It's not something we have or don't have. It's something we choose to practice. And often these young people don't have compassion for themselves. And it always starts there. And to accept ourselves as we are means to value our imperfections as much as our perfections. And self-compassion is a more effective motivator than self-criticism because its driving force is love, not fear. As long as you are making an identity for yourself out of pain, you can't be free of that pain. And identity these days is fictional. It's written by relatives, by friends, by minority groups, by education, by parents, by society. True identity isn't confusing, and neither is gender.